Good morning, everyone, both here in the at the Zen Center and then also at home. Welcome. This is going to be a bit of a continuation of a talk that I gave last week, but we're going to be looking at some things a little bit differently as well. And that was last week. I was talking about change and how much change we all go through, and how much change is happening all the time, moment to moment to moment. Nothing is ever fixed. It's always moving, and then we hear a lot that it's really just flux. There's not even a moment that changes to the next moment. There's just flux, and it's really hard to wrap my head around that. But that's really the way it is. And so with that change comes all kinds of demands on us, because we're part of the change, and there's this transitions that we go through. So we may have a death in the family, we may get sick, we have new people coming into the world, we have people going out that are dying, we have all these challenges and ever present change that we have to deal with. And again, these many transitions that we all go through in life, they're unavoidable, and it can seem very daunting, and it can cause a lot of pain and suffering for us. So last week talked about how our practice can help us work through these various transitionary times in our life, and not suffer, or certainly not suffer anywhere to the degree that we otherwise might. So today, what I want to do, though, is I want to flip the script a bit on that. So instead of having this, dealing with this notion of, okay, here we are, there's all this change going on all around us all around me all the time, and wow, it's pretty darn hard to deal with all this stuff. I'm getting older, I've got to deal with the aging thing and all this kind of, all this stuff going on. And so so how do I do it? And looking to our practice to help us navigate through that. Instead of looking at it that way, I want to look at it a different way. And that is to see not only that our practice helps us to navigate all the change that we'd have to deal with, but that our practice changes us. Okay, our practice is changing us. So it's not just a practice that's like a tool in the tool belt that helps us deal with life, but as we practice more, I'm not the same. Okay, I'm not the same. You're not the same. Practice is doing something to us, and it may not be particularly obvious what it is, and it's not something we'd have to tell a big story about, but at the same time, be aware that we're not separate, and so everything is affecting everything else, and so our practice is changing the way we see the universe, the way we see this moment, the way that our actions are. It's impossible it doesn't have some kind of impact. But I'm going to share with you a little bit about some of the impact it's been for me, since I'm really the only one I can really talk about in this vein. So I want to talk about, I've been practicing for, I think, around 25 years, something like that. And so I'm going to just briefly kind of set the table by talking about what brought me to practice, and I'll be really brief on that. But what brought me to practice, and to give you a feel for kind of who I was and what I was about, sort of kind of, 25 years ago. And then I want to talk about some of the changes in me that practice has brought about, and things that, I would not be what I am, who I am, for better or for worse now, had I not gone through this and continue to go through this journey. And by the way, it's not like, okay, now practice has changed me and that's done. Are you kidding me? I mean, no way. In fact, it's going to be different. It's going to be different after I give this talk. And I will be different, and you all be different than I was when I walked in the room. So everything's ever changing. I want to hold on to that, and certainly do not for a minute think that, oh wow, that's if there's something that you think is a way I've changed that you think is, oh, that's kind of interesting, that'd be kind of cool, let that one go, because it's not cool. It's just some ways that I'm experiencing things that have changed with my practice, and certainly nothing to be grasped at all, or to be pushed away. It's just you just listen to some of the experiences that I've had in this change. So one of the things that has really been evident for me in my life is first I'm going to back up just a little bit and talk about when I first started out. When I first started out, my dad was had dementia, and it had come on pretty suddenly, and that really rocked my world, right? And I had a very wonderful relationship with my dad, and he was a very, I thought, very intelligent person and a very, very wise person. And he affected me a lot. And then here he was having dementia, you know? And so I remember seeing him in a hospital one time, and he had this paranoid sort of episode in the hospital when he first got dementia. And it just, boy, it shook me, you know, that it was like, what's going on here? And I really kind of thought of it, you know, I'm probably the only person that's ever really gone through this kind of pain, you know, and suffering. And it was just implicit. I thought, man, nobody's been through anything like this. Anyway, that's where I was 25 years ago. And so then I thought, I got to kind of deal with this. And so maybe meditation would be the answer. So I got this book. Some of you have heard me tell the story before. I went to Tattered Cover and I got a book, and it was called Meditation Made Easy. That was literally the title of it, you know. And so I thought, that's the one I want. I don't want that meditation made any harder than it otherwise might be. So Meditation Made Easy. So I got the book, and I came home, and I wanted to take it for a test drive, basically. And so I opened up the book, and I looked at the table of contents. How do you meditate? I thought, yeah, okay, that's what I'm trying to find out. So I read this thing, and it said, I'm paraphrasing, but basically this is what it said. It said, okay, this is going to take you like 2 minutes to do, and you can sit in a chair, you can sit on the floor, you can even lie down if you want. You can do whatever you want, but just try to be still for the next couple minutes, and then turn the page, and you'll learn more about meditation, right, from this experience. So I did that, and I was sitting in a chair, and I was just kind of like, you know, I'm sure I must have been kind of like this, and then I had a timer. I had a rubber watch with a timer on it, chronograph. Beep beep beep, you know, went off. And so okay, my 2 minutes is up. So now I'm kind of excited. I flip the page, and it says, "Congratulations, you just meditated perfectly. If you squiggled, that's cool. If you were real still, that's fine. If your mind wandered, that's fine. Whatever you did, that's what you are, right? At that moment, that's what you are." So I thought I had this reaction. Here's the reaction I had, honestly, that was just, man, is that a freaking relief? You know, I can't screw this up. I'm more okay, apparently, than I thought I was. I don't have to figure out this or be this way or be different from the way I am or have people like me or have people think I'm a good person or none of that. It sounds probably kind of goofy that it did. It made a huge impact on me. And I won't go into why, but for kind of my socialization experiences and things, I felt that I had to kind of do these things to be okay, as opposed to just accepting all my challenges, foibles, strengths, weaknesses, all that. Okay, so that was kind of my introduction to meditation. And then one other thing I'll say about getting started, when I got started too, was I mentioned this last week briefly, was I wanted to, after about a year of just kind of daydreaming kind of meditation based on my experience from that book, and just maybe letting thoughts of the day just kind of come through my mind, and just kind of almost like watching a movie, like I'd be at night at bed, and for that year after I first had that experience from reading that book, I would just kind of lie down at night, and before I went to sleep, I just kind of watch the scenes come through my mind of that day. And I thought that was pretty neat. I liked that. And so I did that. And that was the only meditation I did. And I shouldn't say only, it was actually very helpful. but I just did that, and there was no pressure on me because I hadn't had any instruction other than that one page from that book, and I hadn't been to a Zen center. And as I often say, I didn't know how to spell Zen. I didn't know anything about Tibetan Buddhism. Didn't know anything about anything like that. So there was no pressure. I spent a year kind of lounging around in this of knowing that I couldn't mess it up. Okay. So then I get this idea, kind of like I read this book by Joko Beck, and I thought it was a Zen. She's actually Zen aunt. She's no longer alive, but Roshi's Zen sister, and she wrote a few books. I'm sure I know some of you have read these and been affected by them. So I read that, and it made me think, okay, I'd like to check out Zen. So I found this group that was meeting at 5:30 in the morning, and this is back when our center was in Lafayette instead of out here at Berthoud. And so I showed up, and I was nervous because I'd never sat with a group before. I didn't know any of the protocols. I didn't know anything about what Zen was other than what I'd read in Joko's book. And I was nervous, and my stomach was like growling. And here it is 5:30 in the morning. There weren't very many of us there. And I can remember my stomach making these sounds. And I'm like, oops, people are going to get that I'm nervous and I'm going to be disturbing people and all this. So I was uncomfortable, right? I was uncomfortable. And again, didn't know what to do. The bell went off, which was for Dokusan. Didn't know what Dokusan was. I had no clue what the bell was. Needless to say, I didn't go there. I just kept sitting. So anyway, it's over. And Shishin Roshi sees me in the foyer of the Zen Center, which was a house. and he just said, so how was that for you? And I said, well, I didn't know any of the forms, didn't know what I was doing. I was nervous, my stomach was growling, but I didn't, He said, well, the forms are not that's not the main thing. The main thing is to just sit. It's to just sit. So I appreciated that. But the thing that I did tell him, which was just as I was getting ready to leave to go for work, was I really loved this experience. I really, really loved this experience. And I had no clue why. Even the stomach growling, even the embarrassing myself a bit, even not knowing what I was doing, but still sitting those 2 periods with a group, never sat with a group before. There was something going on there, and I knew I had to come back. If there was any way, I had to come back and do it again. So anyway, that was kind of that was a start sort of for me. And then when I then did the first weekend retreat, which was a few months later, that I did weekend retreat. When I did that first one, I had this application that I had to fill out to be sure, it was just part of the protocol. You did an application to join the center, the Zen Center, and then you could go to this retreat. So I did it, and what I put down on the application was that I wanted to what brought me to center. I said, well, I want to find out what my true nature is, and I just thought that was kind of like, just something, a box I could check. Like, I guess you can just do that. That's what I want to do. That's it. So that was what I wrote. And I was very sincere about that, very serious about it. That was my huge intention. Okay. So 2 things. For my sitting, there was just something about it that felt like, I need that was like calling me. I need to do that more. And then also this idea, I wanted to find out what true nature was, even though I really had no clue what it was, which is actually a pretty good place to start from, by the way. Anyway, so now 25 years later, or whatever it's been, I wanted to share with you some of the ways that that my practice has changed who I am, what I am, my experience of this moment, experience of being here with all of you. Okay. So the first thing, a big impact in my life, I would say. Some of these may not seem big to you, doesn't make any difference. But one thing that stood out for me when I was just thinking about this a little bit, reflecting on this, was that I'm a lot more connected to everything than I ever thought I was 25 years ago. And not intellectually like, oh yeah, there are connections. Like I was trained as a biologist years ago. And, so I could go into everything, get energy from the sun, plants photosynthesize and they produce oxygen. And if we didn't have green plants, there wouldn't be oxygen, and we'd die. And oh, by the way, there's a water cycle, and when rain comes, it goes in the mountain. Ends up being a piece of paper right here. But it started out as a cloud. All that stuff. Okay, get that. We're all super connected, and we really couldn't. We really couldn't exist without everything else working. This very moment would not exist if any one of you weren't here. If one of you hadn't come today, this moment wouldn't exist. So you're integral to this moment, right? And it's always that way. This coffee mug's integral to this moment. Everything is. None of it's separate from anything else. I heard Roshi a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about this. If you didn't have sadness, you couldn't have happiness. If you didn't have black, you couldn't have white. If you didn't have, he starts going through all these things. Well, of course, the point is everything is codependent. Everything is emerging together, right? And so it's not like anything can be separate. But I want to share with you a more personal example I had about the fact that everything is connected, okay, in ways that I never thought before. And I don't want to screw up. I don't want to, well, I guess it would screw it up if I do this. So I won't. I'll just try to do it sitting here. But anyway, so I worked for a large company for a bunch of years, over 30 years. And one of our headquarters was in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. So I was down there for this meeting, and I'm with my boss, and I'm with a colleague of mine. And we're walking down the hall, getting ready to go to this big room where we're part of this meeting, and I think we each maybe had to give a little presentation or whatever. So we're walking down the hall, and all of a sudden, and it's kind of a whatever opulent setting, big corporate office for a global company, and monitors, TVs everywhere, all kinds of crud going on, lots of stimulus. We're walking down this hall, all probably a little bit nervous just about going into this meeting with people from all over the country, from North America. And so walking down the hall, and all of a sudden my boss sees this spider, going across the hall. And he just says to me real quick, because I apparently was closest to the spider that was going right across the hall as we were walking. And it was big, it's Texas, big spider, and everything's bigger in Texas. So it's going across the hall, and he goes, my Dharma name's Yugen, but my English name is Kent, is Kent. And so he goes, Kent, there's a spider, get it, right? So I stand up here a second. So I just instinctivly, just reached out with my foot, and I'm like, to kill the spider, this big thing. I'm just gonna stomp on it, right? So I put my foot out there, and my foot doesn't go down. My heel goes down, but I couldn't push the do this over here. I couldn't. It didn't go any further than that. It was just boom, And I wasn't thinking about it. And it's not like I'd never killed a spider before, and it's not like I haven't killed insects since then, because I have. I'm not proud of it, but I have, right? But at this moment, I didn't. And in this moment, I not only didn't, I couldn't. It was just boom, and then but my toes wouldn't go down and kill the spider. Okay. So then there was no thought there, but then I did have a thought. And my thought was, this guy, what are they going to say? What's my boss going to say? He must think I'm a real whatever, right? And so he just says, when he sees me quickly put my foot out there, he says, Kent, good job, got it. And of course, I looked then back, and I saw the spider just going on, of course, across the hall like that, right? So what's the point? The point is that there's no way that was inexplicable to me at that time. Although upon reflection, I thought, I don't want to just kill something to kill it. It's not not hurting anything. And everything in context. I mean, if it had been a black widow spider, going across my arm, I wouldn't want to kill it, but I'd certainly want to flick it off or take it outside or something. Just according to conditions, some of these things you take a different approach. But anyway, so that made a big impact on me, though, as far as really something's changed. And by that time, I had been practicing for quite a number of years. Okay. Another thing I wanted to share with you is this the way I have come to experience pain. I talked about it before I started practicing, and my dad, he had this dementia, and it was kind of like, man, this is I just can't take this, kind of like, what do I do? And so I wanted to, so I thought, well, maybe meditation will make that all go away. Okay, that was my intention when I first got into meditation, and but and I talked about this a little last time, is that in meditation, in sitting, um, I have had a lot of pain, physical pain through the years doing that. Some people don't so much. Most of us do some, and some do a lot. And I think I'd put mine on about an 8.5 out of 10 scale. When I'd like be on a weekend or even a week long retreat, there'd be times where it was quite intense, and I'd actually have sweat, coming out because I was in so much pain, right? And so but one time, I mean, over time, what happened was it changed my perspective. My experience of that was that there was still pain that didn't go away. Some people, I guess, it kind of does go away. Good for them. It never has gone completely away from me, but I am able to sit and not squiggle very much because I had this experiencing of that it's not my pain. It's just pain. But it's not my pain. I don't own it. It's not who I am. Okay. It's just pain. Again, it did not make it go away. I've heard people say, and I've experienced this too, if you really, really kind of just zero in on pain, physical pain, sometimes you can make it disappear. You can make it disappear. But what I have found more in my life is that I have pain, maybe emotional pain. It may be, I may be distraught, sad. I may be whatever I am that's causing it. But I have this experiencing of it's not my pain, rather than it's my pain and I got to deal with it. I got to push it away or whatever. I've made peace with that. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is notions of right and wrong. My background was in biology when I was in school. And I did some research, and it was important I thought, to figure out what was really going on and be right. And you'd present a paper, you'd do something, and then people would ask questions and, quite frankly, try to kind of trip you up a lot of times about that I'd oversimplified something, or this wasn't accurate, or wasn't really the truth, that sort of thing. So when I'd be in discussions, I like to be right. I like to be right, and it could be around very banal, unimportant things. And but anyway, this past week I was with my brother, and he asked me to recount for him an experience we'd had together. And it was when we were together on a hike many years ago, probably about 45 years ago, something like that. And we were not directly, but we were hit by lightning, and it hit a rock that we were on. And so we were with my dad, and he said, can you just kind of recount for me what your recollection of that experience was the other day? And so I did. I went through it, and the first thing I did was I said, well, first of all, our dad was with us. This guy whose name I won't mention, but was with us, and my brother, who's 4.5 years older than I, and we were all on this hike, and this weather came up, and I won't recount the whole story. But the first thing my brother said was, well, no, that guy, the guy whose name I won't share, he wasn't with us. He wasn't on that. In fact, he didn't even come out to Colorado till a year later, because my brother knew him. And so my knee-jerk thing was a quick thought was, well, yeah, he was there. He was there. And then I realized, wait a minute, maybe he wasn't there. I don't know. And then my brother was telling something about the story, and he too, he had shared with me that, again, that this guy wasn't there. But in the typically I would have said, like 25 years ago, I would have said, no, yeah, I gotten into an argument about it, and I would have justified how I was right, he was wrong. And it's not that I didn't have some of the energy come up, because I thought, pretty sure he was there. Pretty sure he was one of us that got knocked out by this lightning, you know. But anyway, so we were affected by it a lot, and but I didn't do that, and I didn't really, even though I had a little bit of, I'll call it habit energy of kind of like, oh, I need to correct this. I was like, huh. And the truth was, I knew I didn't really know, because you just really can't know much of anything. And so often it's when I think I've known something and been so darn sure, turns out I'm wrong. I mean, just really, it happens all the time. Okay. But I want to share something from that I then later, this wasn't what affected me particularly, about this not having such fixed ideas of right and wrong. But Nagarjuna, the great teacher who some of you read about, and he has this this tetralemma, it's called Nagarjuna's tetralemma. And you know, a dilemma, the idea, I'm no linguist here, but I think that the idea of a dilemma, kind of like two things, right? We could either go this way, we could go that way. We're in a dilemma. Well, this tetralemma is the idea you could go this way, that way, that way, that way, right? So like in this example, and dealing with right and wrong, we'll just use that as an example. Let's just say, let me take a more, let's just say like this example I had with my brother the other day about, so was he right, this other gentleman wasn't with us, or was I right that he was with us? Okay. And so, not using this idea of a tetralemma, you could say, okay, yes, it's true, he was with us. That'd be one option. Option two, per Nagarjuna's tetralemma, would be, no, he wasn't with us. So he was with us, he wasn't with us, he neither was with us or wasn't with us, or he was both with us and not with us. Okay, those are the four kind of logical things you can come up with, right? True, false, true and false, neither true or false. And then Nagarjuna had this other part of it, which was none of the above. None of the above. But the real thing in this is that someone shared with me a long time ago in a talk, was that people think, oh yeah, it's none of the above. That's the Zen answer. But you know, it doesn't have to be that. It could be none. It could be none of the four options, plus not the none option. It's none of those, which is kind of mind blowing. Okay. And so, as just even hearing that, but also in Zen practice, just through the years, I think I'm a lot less sure ever about anything being the way I think it is. Whether it's a factual thing like, was this person with us or was this person not with us, or even something like, is this mug really a mug at all? Is it separate from me? Is it a mug? What's it holding? What would it be like if there were no space, right? Is it a mug or is it space? Because if there weren't space around this mug, what the heck would it be, right? Wouldn't be a mug. There's space in here, and that space allows me to have water in here, right? Yeah, no space wouldn't be able to have that water, right? So exactly what is it? Don't know, don't need to know, right? I can still do this. I can do that fine, even though I really have no clue what this is, in one sense. In another sense, I do. It's a mug. I'm not going to tell you it's not a mug. You know, when I drive down I-25 and somebody starts to pull over in front of me in traffic and I'm going 60 miles an hour, I hit the brakes. I don't say, well, I'm not sure if that's really a car in front of me or not, you know? So, you know, it's both two things can be true, or as Nagarjuna said, like 4 or 5 things can be true at the same time. So probably a smart idea to pay attention to what, you know, in Zen a lot of times it's called the relative, not just the absolute that everything's one. Two things can be true. Anyway, another thing that I've noticed about life is that, and practice has certainly affected me on this a lot, is the need for compassion for me to make it through life. Right? There's a lot of things. Anyone. I mean, I'm almost 70 now, and anybody that has lived for any amount of time at all, we've been through some stuff, some challenging stuff, some sad things, right? Some things that have affected us, that rocked our world. And we've probably been through a lot of those things. And guess what? Spoiler alert here, we're going to go through some more stuff before our lives are over, right? And to do that, and especially as we're practicing, we get more and more aware of things, we can be hard on ourselves. If we don't have a good dose of compassion to go along with our awareness, we can just notice, well, the other day I was meeting with this person and I said something that was pretty unfeeling. And I think it hurt I think their feelings were hurt. Okay. So, God, here I am. I've been practicing for 25 years. I'm still a knucklehead. I still frustrate people. I'm doing this. I don't know why am I doing this practice anymore? It's too hard. I just can't do it. Right. And a lot of people do that, by the way. They come to Zen or come to some sort of spiritual practice. They become very judgmental as they become more aware, and it's a setup for failure, right? But rather than do that, if we have a lot of compassion, first of all, we can realize that, wait a minute, it's not about being right on things, or that I should have handled it in a different way. Like I said, this whole notion of right or wrong is not really very accurate at all. But instead, it's an awareness practice. All I can do is be aware. I can be aware, and I can, aware of what's going on. I can be aware that of what happened with this individual. I don't really know how it affected him. It may have hurt him, it may have not. He acted like it did. I don't really know. I'm not in his head. So another thing that I've noticed through practicing a lot is that more of a real appreciation for the fact that it's an awareness practice. It's not a self-improvement plan. I'm not trying to set the bar to try to become something I'm not because I'm not good enough. It has nothing to do with if I'm good enough or not good enough. I'm just being aware. Okay. And when I'm aware, I'm also way connected. And having that compassion I was talking about, having more compassion and realizing the importance of that, it's so important to not give up on this. Have compassion with ourselves because this practice is hard. Life is hard. It's not easy. Doing the best we can. The old line about we're really spiritual beings trying to be humans, right? As opposed to human beings trying to be spiritual. Well, there's a lot of truth in that, right? So be able to cut ourselves some slack rather than just say, okay, I'm getting out of this. I don't need this. There's a lot of things I could be doing outdoors today. It's a beautiful day. I don't have to be in here, sitting or whatever, or listening to the talk or whatever we're doing, talking. So anyway, again, that shift of realizing how important compassion is, and as the old I think it's Honest Tea bottle cap that I had one time said when I looked at what the words of wisdom were on that bottle cap for my iced tea, it said even too much compassion is not enough, and that's actually what I've experienced. Okay. Another thing I wanted to share was this idea of the way time appears, the way I'm experiencing time. And when I was probably in my 30s, I had an acquaintance who wanted to live to be 100. That was a big deal to him. He wanted to live to be 100. I thought, 100, wow, that'd be kind of cool. Live to be 100. You could do a lot if I lived to be 100. Okay, and also I wouldn't have to die until I was 100. And dying when I was in my 30s, particularly, that didn't really seem like that attractive a thing to want to do. I wanted to live. So, and what he did was he didn't eat very much. And there's an argument that, like I guess it's been shown with mice that if they don't get many calories, they live longer. Okay, it's kind of weird. I have to have certain nutritional things, but they live longer. So this guy, it became popular. I saw a thing on 60 Minutes once, and they showed some humans that were part of this thing like he did. And And who knows how, I don't know, how much longer they lived or didn't live or anything. But anyway, that was important to him. And I thought, man, kind of interesting, that I find it interesting that he wanted to do that and other people want to do that. But unlike when I was in my 30s and thought, oh, that'd be pretty cool to live to be 100, for any number of reasons now, I could care less if I lived to be 100. In fact, intellectually, I'd probably say, there's a lot of challenges when you live to be 100 too. As we get older, I think everybody, all of us, are at least an age where we have to know what it's like to let go of more and more things that we used to maybe be able to do. We can also do some different things we couldn't do, but we have to let go. And as we get older and older and we get closer and closer to the end of our life, boy, we might be letting go of the fact that we can see, our vision's not good, or maybe we go blind, or we become deaf or hard of hearing. My hearing is definitely not as good as it used to be. So kind of letting go of that. Okay. And then, but there's all kinds of stuff we can't do that we have to let go of. And friends, lovers, everything we let go of because they're dying, they're gone, right? So a lot of things we have to let go of. So the idea of living to 100 doesn't sound so great. I remember when my parents, they died in their 80s, and when we had a memorial service for them, hardly anybody was there because a lot of their friends had either moved off someplace or they were in a nursing care facility or something, or they died, and a lot of them had died. So I don't know if it would be so great to go through that. But the real reason I'm bringing it up today is really none of that. The real reason is that when I was in my 30s, okay, I thought that this notion of living to be 100 or 95 or whatever it might be, that was somehow it's very hard for me to explain this, but the way I thought of it, but it's like that I could somehow enjoy the fact that I was living to 95. It was like it would be put in a container of existence. That, okay, here's this thing, 100 years old, I get to be the 100 years old. And then with my practice, I mean, it just seems so crazy. If you want to be 100, please, I support you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Maybe I'll want to be 100. I'm 69 now. Maybe when I get to be older, I'll be very much pushing to be 100 because I'm scared to death of dying. Who knows? I don't know. But the point is, right now, I can't save it up. It's not like I can save it up that I'm going to get to be 100. The only place I can live my life is where? It's right now. It's here, right? And there, this idea that I was, born in the present, I live in the present, and then I die in the present moment. That's probably a pretty accurate statement. Okay. So because I can't really right now I can't really enjoy the fact that later I might take a hike in Boulder in the Flatirons. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But I can't enjoy that now, other than I can tell a story about it. All I can really enjoy right now is and seeing you. That's it. This is it. And that's a pretty big deal because it is, for me, it's my entire life. That's it. Okay. Now, can I have stories about things, and do I create stories? Absolutely, I do. But the point is, this is my reality that I can interact with directly. That's what I can do. Okay. That's a big change for me from the way I thought about things before I started practicing. Doesn't mean it's right. It's just a change for me. One of the other things is, I'm not going to emphasize this a lot, but a lot of the existential questions, even though we're talking about some of these things last week and this week, this whole idea of trying to figure stuff out, like, oh man, I got to figure this out. I was talking to somebody one time about Dogen, and they were talking about how hard it is to figure out some of his writings, but guy was I'm sure an incredible genius, an incredibly helpful teacher in all kinds of ways. But at sometimes, I had thought, well, it'd be cool if I could figure out all the stuff he was writing about. I gave up on that a long time ago. But I can drink out of my mug. That's pretty good. That's my experience right now. Or holding this back. I can do that. Okay. Dogen, he probably can't do that anymore because he's probably been dead for a long time. Right? So, but he's got these writings that affected me in a lot of wonderful ways and helped clarify things, right? So I don't need to minimize that. But still at this point, what can I do? And then another thing that I noticed, I want to cut this out here pretty quick, but another thing I noticed in practice is I remember going out one morning to get the newspaper. Yes, I actually did take a newspaper one time in my life, and it'd be delivered, and it was in the driveway. So I go out the driveway and I picked up the newspaper, and this was early in the morning where I went to work, and I realized, wow, there's a lot of space here. I'm just going to get my newspaper. It's over there. I'm here. I got to walk over and get my newspaper, and I'm walking through space to get this newspaper, right? And it was really cool. And Roshi Shinko had told me years ago, before we went outside at a week-long retreat, to sit outside. And she said, it's kind of an advanced kind of meditation in a way. She said, but just try to focus on the space where we're going to be rather than all the things that you're going to see. And it was in a little wildlife preserve area near Wanaka Lake, where the old Zen Center was. And so I tried to do that, and not particularly successful from my point of view then, but I just tried to observe the space and the clouds, but there's up there and there's something in between me and these clouds. Well, I was doing this years ago, and I didn't really get it, and I didn't really, whatever. But things am I always aware of the spaciousness? No, but I'm aware of it a lot. And it's very, I don't want to say any more about it. Just, but that's something I really notice a lot and appreciate a lot. And I never used to think about it. And I try not to think about it particularly, but I can't help but be impacted by it all the time because it's always here. Another thing I would say is I'm not very interested in seeking anymore. Like, I'm not really putting much energy into, man, if I could just have this great Kensho experience or Sartori experience. I want that experience like Hakuin had. I heard he had one of the most amazing ones. That would be it, right? And that was a big deal when I started practice. I wanted, like I said, I wanted to see my true nature, right? And then I'd read about some of these people's experiences, like Hakuin or like, Dogen or some of these folks. And not to mention Shakyamuni Buddha. And I think, yeah, I really want that. I really want that. And I wanted that because there was something lacking in my life. And part of that lack brought me to practice. When I was struggling with my dad or going through different things, I wanted to fill up the hole. I felt this lack, and I didn't like that feeling, But now I think, if, what do I want? What am I really lacking, right? I think I got everything I need. And anything that I get frustrated about or feel a sense of lack about, which I do, absolutely, from time to time, I can just, as part of my practice, experience that feeling of a sense of lack. Okay, because as Roshi said the other day in talk, if you didn't have the sense of lack, I couldn't have that sense of completeness also, right? They both support each other. Anyway. Okay, so I'm going to close off here in just a minute, but one thing I wanted to say is, just for me, one of the things I always have to remind myself of too is that none of this thing is ever over. It's still unfolding, unfolding. So whatever ways I may have changed or not changed, there's still opportunities, and it's still going to be more and more unfolding of this reality. Okay. And for right now, I get to experience it in this human form, although even my human form is changing all the time. But I don't want to imply that, okay, now I've learned these things I talked about. Life's spacious. I don't need to, live to be 100. I don't, life's really connected. I didn't step on a spider or a cockroach once, so that's great. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there are certain things that I can bring up at this point in time that I believe were, for better or for worse, I'm not sure I would have experienced the way I did had it not been for my practice. That's all I'm trying to say. Um, so, in closing, um, this really then is already right now. This is our life. This is the life that Shakyamuni lived, right? This is the life of the Buddha that we're living right now. So whether it's me drinking water, whether it's me talking to you, whether it's feeling my feet on the ground, whatever it is, looking at the beauty here, both in this room and outside there, all that, that is the life that the Buddha lived. So when you brush your teeth, when you do the dishes, when you boot your computer, when you pee, when you poop, when you get angry, when you get happy, when you feel blissful, when you feel depressed, that's all the life of the Buddha. You're living it. That's it. Okay. And if that doesn't measure up to your standards or my standards, good luck with that. It is the cards we're dealt, right? There's some pretty amazing cards. If we don't feel things have to be a certain way, if we can learn to let go a little bit, and if we can open our hearts to what this is and just see how that plays out, right? And really the only thing I got to deal with is right this instant, right this moment. And that's that ability to do that. That's practice. Just to be here the best we can and take a big cup of compassion every day or buckets full of it so that we can appreciate without judging who we are, who others are, what this is. So as we said, that as the Eno recites every night in Sesshin, let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us should strive to awaken, take heed, do not squander your life. And that awakening doesn't have to be something that you have to do Zen practice for 25 years or 1 year or 5 minutes. Right? We can do that right now, right at this moment, right? We can be awake, right at this moment. Okay.